أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على أفضل الأنبياء والمرسلين بارد الخلائق أجمعين سيدنا وسندنا وشفيعنا مولانا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل على محمد وعلى بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين الذين اصطفاهم الله أجمعين. أما بعد، فقد قال الله تعالى في محكم كتابه الكريم وقوله الحق وهو أصدق الصادقين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الصلاة تنهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر ولذكر الله أكبر. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوات على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد. I certainly of Allah Azza wa Jalla, the Omniscient, the Omnipotent, all praise is due to Allah for giving us the ability to exist and allowing us the chance to understand and reflect on our existence. And that perhaps is the most profound thing that we can do. Throughout the past 7 or 8 nights, we've been discussing many different topics and concepts. And what I'd like to do tonight, it brings them all together and try to understand them. If there's something that you notice about the discussions that we've been having, is many of them were urging us to try to think and open our minds to a different reality than the reality that we see. Even if you are sure that you have the most truest form of religion that you have, one of my initial ideas was to try to get people to think a bit outside of the box that they have, and to try to get myself to come up with something a bit outside of the box. Because the way religion works is that religion only is affected and is effective by how open-minded you are. Religion can never make you open-minded. You can never give a closed-minded individual religion and say, here is a religion that I want you to have, go ahead and open your mind now. No. Religion is as open-minded as the container that you allow it to be in. And religion is as open-minded as the brain that you allow to dissect it and understand it. And I tell myself there are certain individuals in this world who, no matter how you give them religion, they're still extremely closed-minded. Take, for example, a person like Zakir Naik. Zakir Naik, as much as he's memorized in the Quran and as much as he's understood, if the angel Jibreel came down and gave him the Holy Quran, it would never make a difference in how he sees religion. Why? Because his mind is already closed on a specific way. I'm right and everyone else is wrong. Now let me come and tell you why my religion is so right. It's a very closed-minded concept. And the way religion works in its purest essence is religion is as open-minded as you allow it to make you, and is as open-minded as you are as a human being. And it can never make you an open-minded person. It can never say to you, you're closed-minded, let me now make you open-minded. And that's why many of the examples that I gave in my previous lectures, and I want to tie all the points together, because the final question that comes is, why do I need religion? Because there's so much criticism that I've brought up to this point. And I want to tackle today why it's important and why it's necessary and how it's not exactly as we see it. One of the biggest issues is that even when the Prophet came to Arabia, his main concerns, as I've been discussing in the previous nights, is his main concern was, O people of Arabia, before I give you any form of religion, before I give you salah, before I give you zakat, before I give you laws, before I give you any sort of theology, what's more important to me is you become open-minded in the way that you are as a human being. And that's why he would continuously urge them to think and do tafakkur. And one of the Quran's main principles is tafakkur. As we mentioned in the verse, Allah says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, الذين يذكرون الله قياما وقعودا وعلى جنوبهم ربنا ما خلقت هذا باطلا سبحانك فقنا عذاب النار. God gives examples of individuals in the Quran who are constantly reflective and constantly thinking. And hence in today's conclusion, one of the main things that I'd like to start off with and to say is that when the Prophet came, his main aim was not only to spread religion, that's secondary. His number one aim was to get a group of people who were very close-minded to open their minds. Because he acknowledged that the only way religion will have any effect on these people is by how open-minded they are. There are certain people today who have religion, but what's religion done to them? What's religion done to them? If anything, it has made them worse in the way that they see the world. It's made them more closed-minded. I know some people who say, look, I was a Christian, I converted to Islam, but now I'm Iraq or in Syria fighting against so-called Shia Muslims because they're kafirs. I would rather this person stay as a Christian than convert to a Muslim because he's doing more harm than good. What's religion done for this person? Nothing at all. Why? Because the individual himself might be closed-minded. Because the person himself doesn't have an open mind, and hence in turn he can't really do much with religion. Religion then boggles him down and makes him follow things which he might not understand. And that's why a big theme in the past nights was to what? Let's open our minds and open our hearts and try to get somewhere and try to move forward. And I'd like to tie some points together. There are some main things that we discussed in the past nights. One thing that we discussed was the idea of religion being a reality. And when I said reality, what I was trying to say is that religion is more than just a name. And we addressed that more than once. Religion is not just a name or a banner over Islam. But Islam is a reality, is a human phenomena that's been happening from the time of Adam until now. And when we went forward and we talked about in one of our lectures which we had, which was titled, Do Only Muslims Enter Heaven? We tried to give the understanding that Islam isn't only a name of a religion, but it's actually a verb or things that a human being does that makes him more Muslim than others. And we did istidlal to the Quran, and we used the verse, Allah says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, قالت الأعراب آمنا قل لم تؤمنوا ولكن قولوا أسلمنا. The Arabians would say to the Prophet or Rasulullah, we have become Muslim, we have believed. Rasulullah says to them, don't believe, but say that you've submitted. You act upon what you hear. And that was of utmost importance. And what we're trying to do was to get us to see Islam as more than just an imposed force. Rather, it's a human entity that comes from within and is brought forward, and the people start to realize what life is about. Hence, when the Prophet came to the Arabians, Allah says to him, O Muhammad, فَذَكِّرْ إِنَّ فَعَتِ الذِّكْرَ. And the reason he was told to dhakkar or remind was because the Arabians within them had a specific humanity of Islam. Because Islam, as we establish, is not only a name of a religion which was brought down to give laws and theology and morals, but Islam is a movement which tried to bring human beings back to their human essence. When Allah created us, He created us in a beautiful, perfect human essence. As children, we grow perfect. We are born not sinning, or we're born, we're not sinners as we are born, but we are born as perfect beings. And as time advances, our community takes an effect on us, and then we become different in our ways. We might sin, we might kill, we might hurt others, we might emotionally or physically abuse other people, and we stray away from that perfect soul that God had created. When the messenger came, what his mission was to get these individuals on a first level, to get them to go back to the humanity, which is the original meaning of Islam, the humanity, the goodness that's in a human being. That soul that's inside of us, which is awake, is when Islam is truly awake. And let me kind of explain what I mean by this. You and I work under two main forces, fitra and tabi'ah. Fitra is an animalistic essence which tells us that I'm hungry, I want to eat. Tabi'ah is our animalistic essence which tells us I'm hungry, I want to eat. Or I'm sleepy, I want to sleep. It's our very human nature. It's our animalistic nature. I need to eat, I need to sleep, I need to drink, I need to do this or I need to do that. Tabi'ah is that controlling force that comes from within the human being that allows the person to control. Fitra is the inner human that comes out that allows and controls the tabi'ah. I'll give a brief example. A person who might be overweight will open the fridge and says, look, I'm really hungry right now. I want to eat 10 cupcakes. 10 cupcakes, I want to eat them right now. A person who's very, very hungry. Or a person who might be overweight. That's his tabi'ah speaking. His fitra, his inner core, that conscience in his brain will come up from inside him and say, no, you can't do that because you're already overweight. How do you expect to live for the rest of your life? There's some inner core inside of him. Mind you, none of us were actually told when we're born, don't kill your mother because killing your mother is very bad. You already know that. It's written in your essence that you can't kill anyone. It's written in your essence that you can't hurt anyone. Even an atheist knows these things. It's written in your essence that you can't, for example, hurt an individual emotionally. It's written in your essence. Some people decide to defy that, and that's why we feel guilt, because we go against our essence. The very concept of fitra is this inner human feeling, this inner core, which allows us to control the animalistic tabi'ah which we have. And think of it this way. Tabi'ah is a raging river. Fitra is the dam which controls that river and allows it to be channeled into electric energy. Tabi'ah is a raging horse which wants to do everything that it wants to do. It wants to go out, it wants to club, it wants to drink, it wants to hurt, it wants to steal, it wants as much as it can get. And Fitra comes in and says, hold on, there's consequences, control what you feel. And Fitra acts as the rider that steers the horse from left to right in order for it to not go in the wrong direction. These are two very powerful forces that we have inside of us. Mind you, even an atheist who might not be a Muslim has these two main forces. An atheist who might not be a Muslim has these two forces inside of them. And the reason this is important is perhaps the most Islamic idea of what it means to be a Muslim is this very nature that God has created us with, which is a controlling of evil and good. It's written within our essence. Within my essence, I know there are things which are bad that I need to stay away from. And I know within my essence there are things that are good that I need to go to. Right? Before Islam was even given as a law system to any individual or group of people, before Islam had been a religion or established by the Prophet, even in the time of Nabi Adam, people were slowly starting to understand these morals that were within them. We started at a very, very low level. And the eras of hunting and gatherings, right? We're talking millions of years ago, people were at a very, very nomadic level. In the sense that they would kill each other, they would eat each other. To them, that wasn't a problem, right? Because they hadn't really explored this fitra and tabi'ah that was in them. When times advanced and people moved to different eras, and I'm talking about, for example, times of where human beings first started to move forward, to start civilizations, we slowly started to form political systems and moral systems within each other in order for us to understand what life is about. The earliest civilizations were civilizations where people would come together and say, look, there are things which are wrong, but at the same time we can break these things. As time advanced in the agrarian era, which was the era of the prophets, we're talking Nabiullah Nuh, we're talking Nabiullah Isa, Musa, we're talking Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. This agrarian era or period was when historically people started to set moral groundings and start to understand the morality which they abide by. Right? People started to really understand things. And that's why when the Prophet held the hand of Amir al-Mu'mineen on the day of Ghadir and he said, Al-yawma akmaltu lakum dinakum, he was saying that today I've completed for you and peaked for you the completion of religion by establishing the morality of you as a people and having a leader to safeguard this morality and make sure that it's here. It was extremely important for the Arabians, and that's what had happened in the agrarian era. As we move forward now to the industrial era, where we're continuously having much industrialization going on, we started to create within ourselves societies, political systems, understandings, economic systems, scientific systems, and through these systems we move forward. And religion came at one point not only to be a human force or a so-called imposition on people. Rather, it was trying to bring people back to that essence of goodness that they had. And much of the time when we talk about our holy imams, take a look at an individual as Imam Hussein. The way we Muslims are, and I've discussed this in 2 lectures ago, is that we immediately see people and simply base our submission on them or our understanding of them based on their banner. He's a Muslim, he's a good person. He's a Christian, he's a bad person. What this idea does is it allows us now to see much deeper than just the banner of Islam, and we look at the actual essence and the formation of what makes a person Muslim. Let me give a brief example. Take a look at Hussein ibn Ali alayhi salam. Hussein ibn Ali, as we say, is our jugular vein, is he not? Hussein ibn Ali to us is a source of pride. As he spoke yesterday, Hussein ibn Ali advances cultures, moves individuals, shakes mountains, allows us to be who we are, gives us an identity. The question that I ask is this. Imagine tomorrow you were to wake up and realize that the same Hussein ibn Ali that we love, the same Hussein ibn Ali that we adore, the same Hussein ibn Ali that died the way he died and moved the way that he moved and sacrificed the way that he sacrificed. The question that I ask is, what if he was a non-Muslim? Would we ever see him the same way? I'm talking about the same Hussein ibn Ali. Nothing has changed. He loves God. He sacrificed for God. He lived his way in the way of God. He started living and sacrificing for God. What if he was not under the banner of Islam? How many of us would see him the same way? How many minds are open enough to say there is something much past which is valuable in Hussein ibn Ali than just the banner of Islam? There's a whole humanity to this man that makes him as great as we say he is. And the reason I say this is not to say Imam Hussein wasn't Muslim. No, he was definitely Muslim and fought for Islam. But there's a much greater aim that he's fighting for humanity. The reason I bring this example is, do we love the Hussein ibn Ali that we love because he has the banner of Islam on him? Or do we love the Hussein ibn Ali that he was because of his actions and who he was as a human being? That he went back to the original form of humanity with those attributes of sacrifice, love, and kindness. How many have open hearts to say, if Hussein ibn Ali was not labeled under the banner of Islam, I would still see him the same way? Because at the end of the day, the value is not in just the name or the title, but the value is in the works that the human being has brought. The value is in this specific individual. You've got, for example, people in today's times, individuals who came, like for example, Martin Luther King, who comes in a time in America where the world is completely living in an area of segregation. In America, you had an era from the time of the 1920s, even before that, until about the 1970s and 1980s, bathrooms were segregated. Restaurants were segregated. Drinking fountains to drink water were segregated. People were completely separated, blacks and whites. If you're on a bus, if you're a black, you'd sit in the back. If you're a white, you would sit in the front. Complete segregation. Young children could not hold hands together. They went to separate schools. People were not allowed to intermarry. If you were a black woman in the roaring 1950s seen with a white man, either he would be lynched or you would be killed. People sat literally around trees and picnics and saw white men taking black men, hanging them every single day, day after day, and a family would sit with 4 or 5 children, observe the lynching, and enjoy a picnic. Very, very normal. This happened in America up until the 1990s. This wasn't very long ago, 1990s. All of a sudden you have a man who's under no name of Islam as Martin Luther King, comes into the Washington Monument with 100,000 people, stands on a pedestal and gives his famous I have a dream speech. And he says, I have a dream that one day my young children would go to school with whites and blacks completely together and have absolutely no segregation. 10 years later, a case was brought forward, Brown versus the Board of Education. The Supreme Court completely amended the laws in America. Segregation was completely banned. They went from being killed and executed every day. They went from being eaten alive by dogs. Black people were literally burned to the stake at one point in America. They were taken and charcoaled and barbecued every single day. It was a very, very bad reality they lived in. You have a man who was not a Muslim comes forward and says, I believe in equality. I believe in justice. I believe in giving human beings their rights. And he completely changes the system. And he goes until the 1970s where black people were even given the right to own property and vote. Completely changes the system. He goes later after that, maybe 5-10 years, and he's assassinated. Goes from prison to prison, from jail to jail, house burnt down twice, 3 times, and he's assassinated later on. You've got such an individual who might not say, I'm a Muslim, but the qualities that he holds, the liability that he has, the amount of care and value that he has for any other human being, you'd think this man, if he was alive in the time of Imam Hussein, he might definitely join him. And hence 2 nights ago we gave an example and said that within Karbala there were 2 main individuals who came towards Imam Hussein alayhi salam and stood by his message. One man by the name of John, who was a black man, the servant of Imam Hussein, and a second man was Wahab, who was Christian. And our ahadith give us no evaluation that they were Muslim. The reason I bring these points up is this. How many of us see past the simple banner of Islam that because I'm a Shia Muslim, or because I'm a Shia Muslim, or because he or she is a Shia Muslim, I love that person. And how many of us see to the actual movement and the submission and the verb by which human beings act? Because I tell you, there are shallow enough people out there today who will simply see a person, and by how he looks, and by how he dresses, and by how he is, they'll completely judge them. It's very easy. And we have put segregation through religion. And it's interesting because there are people today in the world, and I mentioned this before, who are playing on this segregation game. This is Shi'i, this is a Sunni. Let them fight right now. This is a Muslim, this is an non-Muslim. You're wrong and I'm completely right. This mentality that we have only brings destruction. And hence you have even an individual like Gandhi who says, I'm very, very influenced by Muhammad, and I'm very, very influenced by Hussein, because the movement is universal. The religious movement is universal. Look at the prophets of God, Isa, Musa, Muhammad, Ibrahim. All of them came to say what? Oh mankind, be kind to each other. Don't kill each other. Don't hurt each other. Be kind to your neighbor. The message is very similar. But the way that human beings are is they've taken the message and they've completely segregated it so it separates us. Yes, there might be certain different beliefs, but that is your belief and here is my belief. What I'm trying to say is this. Let us be a wiser community where we look at the value of individuals and not only at the banner. And I gave this example and I'll give it again. How many of us are open-hearted enough to say that Hussein ibn Ali, who died in Karbala, who shed his blood, if he was a non-Muslim, I would still see him and view him in the same way. I don't love him simply because he's under the banner of Islam, but no, I love him because of the actions that he's done, the things and the values that he's done. And God comes in the Quran with a profound verse and he says, Ya ayyuhan nas, إِنَّا خَلَقْنَاكُم مِّن ذَكَرٍ وَأُنثَى وَجَعَلْنَاكُمْ شُعُوبًا وَقَبَائِلَ لِتَعَارَفُوا. Oh people, we've created you. He says people, not Muslims, not mu'mins. We've created you from male and female. And it's interesting because the original form of Islam came where within the Quran, Allah says to the Prophet in the Battle of Badr, as you know, within the Battle of Badr, Abu Lahab, what he did was that he created much rift between the Muslims. Abu Sufyan came one day into Medina and said, "O people of Arabia, Muhammad is trying to attack your caravans. Muhammad is trying to loot your caravans. Come and aid me." Even though Rasulullah was very far from them, very far, he said, "Come and aid me." He started rift between the Muslims in Medina and the non-Muslims in Mecca, because realize at this point the Muslims had been separated. When Abu Sufyan brought an army of about 980 people, Rasulullah made an army of 313, and a verse in the utmost level of beauty came down. Allah says to the Prophet, fight them, because if you do not fight them, then the mosques, the synagogues and the churches will be destroyed. لَهُدِّمَتْ مَسَاجِدُ وَصَوَامِعُ. And it's interesting because people in history come and read this, like Rasulullah was fighting for Islam. Why is the Quran mentioning synagogues and churches? What's the point? We don't get that when Rasulullah was fighting for Muslims, he was also fighting for non-Muslims. He was also fighting a battle where non-Muslims were also being shunned. People who were Christians or Jews who were closer to Islam than the non-Muslims were also being shunned. And hence Rasulullah's fight at that time was not only towards Muslims, but it was even towards non-Muslims. And hence when the messenger comes and does as-sulh, right? For example, in Sulh al-Hudaybiyah, where he comes together and makes peace treaties, he's saying that, "O people of religion, we come and unite under the same banner. And our battles, such as the battles of Badr, are battles for all religions, not only Islam." And hence when the messenger came, this unity between Muslims and non-Muslims was something very important. Because the question that we ask ourselves is, how much interfaith do we do today? Every single Muharram and every single Ramadan, we come, which is great. We sit amongst ourselves, the same 5 or 10 or 20 or 100 or 300 people. We sit together. We talk to each other. We speak to each other. We mourn together. We cry together. But how many of us actually go out and do interfaith? Not to argue or debate, but say, look, you have a belief and I have a belief. Can we come to a conclusion? One brother the other day was telling me a very interesting story. He says, back in our younger days, very close friend of mine, says, back in our younger days, when there were protests being done in a specific area, and I think near Buckingham Palace, you know, the place where the Queen lives. I think I have to say, God bless her for how much you guys respect her over here. Back in those times when people were doing cartoons against the Prophet, he says, we went as a group of friends, 5, 6, 7 of us, as we were rowdy, we were 16, 17. We went to get into a fight and to get into fist fighting and punching with people who supported the cartoons of the Prophet. We went to fight. He says, well, I took 3 or 4 of my friends. We went to go fight. He says, when they caught us there, they started taking snapshots and pictures of us, and we knew that we couldn't fight them. So what we did is we decided to go to a nearby pub and sit in that pub and wait to hear conversations next to the place of the protest where people would fight, and over there we'd catch someone who was bad-mouthing the Prophet and we'd beat him up, we'd hit him, when we'd leave. He's telling me this story. He says, when we got to the pub, we immediately saw a group of people who were sitting there talking about the Prophet, and they were bad-mouthing the Prophet. He says, I became tough and went up to him and said, look, you can't talk about our Prophet like this. He's ready to hit him. And the guy says, why not? He says, well, because the Prophet, he's a good man. He's like, what? He's like, what do you mean he's a good man? He says, yeah, he's a good man. He says, what do you mean he's a good man? What did he do? He says, this Muhammad came and revolutionized Arabia. He gave people who had no morals. He changed their negative culture and he allowed them to become better people. The Englishman in front of him says, really? He says, yeah. He says, do you respect him? He says, yeah, I respect him. He says, I'm so sorry and I apologize. He says, what do you mean you apologize? He says, I'm sorry. I had no idea Muhammad was like this. The brother says, we were ready to go fight and we didn't even have to fight. The man immediately apologized and says, look, I'm so sorry. I didn't know you respected him this way. And there are more individuals out there. I tell you, most people around the world are uninformed. All they see of Muslims is Muslims killing, Muslims hitting, and Muslims blowing themselves up. Nothing else. Most people don't see more than that. And it's my responsibility and your responsibility to go up and say, look, we as Muslims are peace-loving individuals. The word sword is not mentioned once in the Quran. All of our Prophet's bachelors were in defense. We want you to know what type of Islam is out there. Not to convert them, not to change who they are, but to really get them to understand the lifestyle that we live. And this idea of interfaith hasn't really been explored enough because for us, it's always the same cocoon and the same bubble. Every weekend, I sit with the same 5 people and I talk to the same 5 people, me and my boys or me and the girls, and we are sitting in the same place every single weekend. My life, a person might say 50 years, 60 years, I sit with the same people every single weekend, right? It's Muhammad, Ahmad, Hussein, Ja'far, and Ali. Same people. Every weekend, same exact people. Go out and see the world. Experience the differences that are out there. For the first time in my life in St. Louis, I met a Taiwanese Muslim, Shia, who works for the biggest company in America known as Monsanto, agricultural company. He's a scientist there. I felt lucky as ever. How different is this? A Muslim who's from Taiwan, who's a Shia. If it's not for the traveling that I had done, I've never met him. But it's amazing to see the differences that are out there and the people that exist. Go out and open your horizon. Meet different people. See their beliefs. A lot of the time as a Muslim community, it's very easy for us to generalize. All Sunnis are the same and they hate Imam Ali. All Christians believe that God or the Messiah or Prophet Jesus is God. All Christians hate Muslims. All of these people believe the same thing. All Sistani followers are the same. All Fadullah followers are the same. All Shirazi followers, and we keep separating each other because of generalizations. Go out and see the world. See someone different. Speak to someone different. Be part of an interfaith dialogue. Bring Christians forward and say, let's sit and talk. Bring Jews forward and say, can we come together or closer as a people? Because if we don't do that, there's not much good in us. The same Muslims, look at how contradicting we are as a Muslim community. We will say, as Muslims, that if only the world knew Islam, how the world would be a better place. And you ask the same Muslim, is there a place for a Christian in your religion to go to heaven? Nope. Is there a place for a Hindu in your religion to go to? If you want to rule over the world, mind you, there has to be a position for the non-Muslims in your world. What's their position? There's no position for them. They all enter hell. You want to rule the world and you want to give your Islam to the world, and you have no position for the Christian in it. You have no position for the Hindu in it. You have no position for the atheist in it. How? How can the world see what you have? How can you successfully lead the world? And the same people will come and say to you what? When Imam Mahdi comes tomorrow, he will kill so many people, there will be rivers of blood. You're telling me the same man whose great-grandfather came to be a mercy on people, to love people, to guide them, to bring them to Islam, who was merciful with the killer of his uncle Wahshi. He allowed him to go. With the killer of his family, with the Christians, with the Jews. That same man's grandson, who's a manifestation of his grandfather's message, is going to come and chop heads and kill people. Is that what you're telling me? Is that what you're saying? And it's interesting because the contradiction is within us. We want the world to see us, but we're not open-minded enough for the world. We want people to know what we have, but we're not willing to sit with people. We want people to come to Islam, but the minute they turn to us, I'm sorry, there's no position for you in Islam. We want an atheist to embrace Islam, but we say to him, by the way, if you don't change his ways, my imam might be chopping your head off, just so you know that. How? How could he ever come to Islam? And it's very interesting. It might be a laughing matter, but very honestly to me, it's a reality. We think this way sometimes, and we expect people to come to us and say, can I talk to you? Can I speak to you? Can I dialogue with you? Because these mentalities are within our people. Mind you, the Imam is meant to come in a way where he's able to attract everyone. People would be attracted to him. On a second note, something important to mention, and I'd like to conclude with this, is we spoke briefly about Islam being law-centric versus being principle-centric or why-centric. And what I mean by this is this. Simon Sinek is a psychologist who's a business psychologist, and he comes with this beautiful model to show how human beings really understand things. And he says, in life, there are three main circles. The first circle is known as the circle of the why, which is the middle circle. The second circle is known as the circle of the what. And the third circle is known as a circle of the how, right? Three main circles of how we do things. And he says that any successful business model, if it wants to really give its viewers or buyers or purchasers anything different, they need to tell its people exactly why they would like them to buy something. And realize Apple is very smart in this. Apple would never come to us. Most people have Apple here. Apple would never come to us and say, look, we have a $700 phone, we'd like you to buy it. Never. Their approach is, we want to change the world of communication. The why is always in the middle. We have a vision of changing the world because people buy visions from leaders. They don't buy products. They buy vision. They buy, let me support your vision. Right? Apple will say, look, we have a vision for changing the world in communications. How have we done that? Well, we've got a great phone that we've created. This is the detail, this is the detail, and that's the detail. What is it? Well, here's the phone. Here's how much it costs. Here's where you can buy it. A very basic business model, but it works. Islam is very similar. When Imam Hussein comes to Karbala, he's immediately saying, my message is why. Here's why I want you guys to follow this. When the Prophet came to Arabia, he never gave them the what first. He never said to them, look, I want you to pray now. Or I want you to fast now. Or I want you to put hijab now. Or I want you to put zakat now. No, that's the what. That came later on in Medina. Even within the Quran, there's a big difference between Meccan verses and Madani verses. Meccan verses were verses which had nothing to do with Islamic law and everything to do with why they should believe in Islam. What was in it for them? What was different? What different reality would it bring to the Arabians that would make their lives better? And hence people came to Islam. There was absolutely no mention of the what. Many times today when we teach our younger children, or when we teach our others, our reality that we see of religion is a very law-centric reality. It's very much based on a law system and nothing more than that. And the original form of Islam was very different. The original form of Islam told people, scrutinize the law until you actually understand it. Ask why you follow what you follow until you actually understand it. I'll give you a basic example of a law which some people might not understand. I was at an Islamic camp about 2 years ago, and I was volunteering at the camp, and I went to this family cabin where a brother had been staying, and he says to me, look, I've got a problem. I was like, what's your problem? He says, my problem is I've got a leak in my cabin. I need someone to come and fix it. Here's an example of an Islamic law that people might misunderstand. Because we've just become law-centric. We just follow the law for the law and really don't put a thought into the law itself. I said, what's the issue? He says, I've got a leak. I said, no problem, I'll get my guy to come and fix it. He says to me, who's the person? I said, well, he's, a guy who works here. I'll get it. He says, okay. I was walking away. He looks at me. He's like, sorry, just a question for you. Is he Muslim? I said, no, he's not Muslim. Why? He says, so what is he? What religion is he? I was like, I haven't really sat and dissected his theology or what, but I think he most likely is a Christian. I don't know if he's practicing. I don't know if he cares about religion, but I'll just say Christian because he's white, right? He said, well, hold on. Don't get him. Do you have a Muslim plumber? I said, well, why? He said, well, you know what? If the Christian guy comes to my cabin and fixes the leak and touches things, he might make my whole cabin najis where I can't live into it. Because if he touches the water, his feet touch the water, he's Christian, and he touches anything else like my sofa, my hand, anything else, I might not be able to live in this cabin anymore. You might have to move me. And I was really forced to bring him a Muslim plumber because he really thought that, if this man touched any sort of water, his whole cabin would be najis and he wouldn't be able to live in it. And if that's what he believes in, it's a valid belief. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. But days later, I sat with him and I said, look, how come you believe in this or why do you think this? And as I dissected it more and more with him, it came to me that he had no idea why the ruling was the way it was, but he simply followed it. And I said to him, I appreciate your belief, but you don't touch a human being simply because there's a law and you haven't really dissected the law. We're not saying the law is right or wrong. That's for up to the thinker to believe that. But you haven't even dissected the law and you've made a decision already. You haven't even looked into the Islamic system to see why this is haram and why this is halal. Without even looking into it, you've already made a decision. And many people, it's this case, even with our children. Our children grow up so law-centric, haram, halal-centric, they completely forget to see that Islam isn't about laws, but it's about why I don't do something or why I might do something. And we grow up missing the point. That's why you have many religious kids, and you'll see this in our communities, who are raised by, for example, sheikhs or ulamas, or in their whole lives they've been around masjids and mosques and religious people. The same people who you think, wow, this person is so religious, they leave the mosque and they're immediately at the club or drinking alcohol or they're shooting drugs. You think, what's going on here? It's because this child was fed religion in a haram and halal way, and he got so fed up that he couldn't think outside of the bubble of haram and halal. That's why when the Prophet came, the earliest thing he ever said to the Arabians was what? O Muslims, or O people, for 1 hour concentrate. It's better than 70 years of any of your dry worship. Or O Muslims, to some of them, concentrate for an hour, reflect for an hour. It's better than 1,000 years of dry ibadah. Why? He's saying to them, open your minds and think around the laws. You are not a robot simply to stand and sit based on laws, but there has to be a logical thinking. And perhaps one of the biggest themes in my lectures was skepticism, to get people to really question their essence and their reality and say, look, is there something much more deeper to my reality than I have? And people bring up this question. I'd like to conclude with this question, and they say, look, why do I need religion? And what does religion do for me? Because living in a world where everybody's skeptical, what's the point of religion? Because there's an attack on religion today, and that attack is this. Well, if religion is so good, then what has it done for us? It's separated people. It's taken people off the path. It allows people to fight, right? In many cases, people outside of religion will come and say, look, you people are very backwards. You make a woman dress in these black abayas and the things that you do, the prayers that you do up and down. What's the point? And even Muslims themselves will come and say, look, what's the point of religion? Or why do I need it? What's the point of it? Or what does it do for me? And the question of what does it do for me is the wrongest question anyone can ask about religion. Because if you as a human being are not open in a way, religion will do nothing for you. The question is this. It's not that what can my religion do for me, but it's what can I do for my religion and my Islam, my reality and the way that I live, that opens my universe and allows me and everyone else to benefit. Because Islam, brothers and sisters, is not a pool of water which is stagnant, which you dip yourself in and you take yourself out and you're immediately pure. No. Islam is a raging river of water that you swim in. That as you are swimming, you are seeing everything around you. And as you're progressing, you are moving with this religion. And you're constantly moving forward every single day. Many people make the mistake to think that, look, I can sit back and Islam is now going to affect me positively. No. Yes, the morals of Islam are there. Yes, the system of Islam is there. But the question that we ask is, where's Islam's political system? Where's Islam's social system? Where's Islam's economic system? The answer is it's not there. But Islam knows and understands that as people move forward, their political systems will change. Their economic needs will change. Their understandings of the world will change. And hence we want the people to empower themselves and create these systems and find the best solutions to their issues. Because if Islam gives you and I a political system, an economic system, a social system, you and I will be crippled and we won't do anything else but follow like robots. But God understands and knows that I have given you a aql and I've given you a brain. Don't they think about what I've created? Don't they see everything around them? Why can't they come up with solutions for their issues? The mistake that happens is people sit back, relax, and think, you know what? Islam's going to give me the solutions. No. If it's not for your hard work, and if it's not for your dedication to see what are the needs of my community, then how can Islam give you the answers? Where is your investment in Islam? Where is your movement into Islam? Because you can't sit and think, you know what, Islam is going to give me everything. That's it, I'm set. No. Islam says, look, take a proactive role. Take action. Take a movement. And hence, even within today's world, there's one debate within the world of scholars and the scholarly. One debate says this. On one side, you've got people who say, look, Islam was given to us 1400 years ago. Right? In its theology, in its laws, in everything that it has. And we take it and we follow it and it's done. There are others that say, look, no. As time changes and moves forward, we have new technology, new understandings, and new realities into the world. And hence, as time moves forward, our laws also change to adapt with the time that we live in. And they use a Quranic proof. Within the Quran, there are verses which are known as nasikh and mansukh. God gives a law in the Quran and then changes it with another verse, but the old law which doesn't apply stays there. Many people ask, look, if God brought down a new law, what's the point of keeping the old law? Our scholars will come and say the old law stays to show you the progression of Islam. It shows you how Islam can progress and move forward. It shows you how Islam has changed. At what point it was this, and now it became this. One example is alcohol and slavery. When Islam came, it took a while for it to abolish alcohol, and it took a while for it to abolish slavery, because it came in levels. It came in dissected levels. The Quran is the same way. It's telling us that if God comes down and acknowledges there are laws that might be changed, then what does that say about our reality? And I'll leave you with this. We are living in a very much changing world where things are drastically different every day. Right? We have technology today that is allowing people to regrow white blood cells and to regrow skin. Immune therapy, when people have cancer, something that's extremely efficient is immune therapy. Obviously, you don't hear about it because the pharmaceutical companies don't want people to make money, right? They want to hoard people to chemotherapy and things like that, which have only about a perhaps 33% success rate. But you have something like immune therapy, which is so powerful. It's actually the regrowing of white blood cells. We as humans can regrow white blood cells. They can multiply and we can have them regrow, and they inject them into patients in order for them to get cured from cancer. In other research, people grow skin. If we reach a level where you and I can regrow limbs, then what happens to my hand cutting verse? If I have a thief and I need to cut his hand out of retribution, if I had a thief and I need to cut his hand because he as a human being has done wrong, and I want to show the society this man is so wrong, I'm going to cut his hand so that he doesn't steal again. If he can just regrow his limb at one point in time, what happens to that verse? What happens to it? And the question, the thing that we say is there are things which are changing and times which are advancing. What does that law do to our systems that we live in today? What does that do to the laws that exist today? What does that do to the lifestyles that we live today? And this is, even till today, one of the big concepts that exists. And perhaps one of the beautiful things is Islam has left it open for scholarship. One of the beautiful things of Imam Mahdi not being here. Obviously, it would be amazing to have him come back, but one of the things of why he's not here is to pave way for this Muslim scholarship. You and I come forward and say, we need to do research on a specific topic. Here is my findings and my solutions as to the best concept or the best solution to this issue. Brothers and sisters, perhaps if there's something that we're lacking, it's Muslim scholarship. It's nice to become a doctor. It's nice to become an engineer. It's nice to become a pharmacist, a dentist. But where are our Muslim historians? Where are our Muslim PhDs in theology? Where are our Muslims writing about the evolution of Islamic theological movement? Where are our Muslims who are specializing in Islamic law from Western universities? When was the last time we heard about a dissertation about the difference between Islamic law and Christian law? Or Islamic law and the Hindu law? Or Islamic law or any type of Western law? When's the last time that you heard a PhD or dissertation about something like that? You don't hear that much. What we're in dire need of is Islamic scholarship. Through scholarship, through dialogue, through comparison, you and I grow. You and I start to understand the world at a very, very different pace. And we start to move forward. And perhaps the true reality of religion is a reality that's within us, that is ready to grow and is waiting to come out, and it's waiting to be fruitful and to flower in order to give the world the best solutions to the times that we live in today. Let's raise our hands for dua. I ask Allah Azza wa Jal to keep us on the path of Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. I ask Allah Azza wa Jal to make us leaders in our communities, and I ask Allah to hasten the reappearance of our holy Imam. هذا والحمد لله رب العالمين. صلوات على محمد وآل محمد. So just a quick reminder, a couple of things. One thing, not a really reminder, but sort of a criticism to all of us, myself first and to all of us. I had a brother come to me yesterday and said, look, I am, of a different ethnicity. And because I'm a different ethnicity, some people who are not my ethnicity are coming to me and saying, look, you are, not Arab, you might be Persian or Khoja or whatever, or Pakistani. You're not allowed here. We don't want you here. And I really wanted to note this because this happens. This happens where people who are different than us are criticized based on, gender, based on, how rich they are, based off of their Arab, Iraqi, Khoja, Iranian, whatever, or even religion. And what I want to say is here, everybody's welcome. Every night when people come here, our majlis is different people. We've got Khojas who come here, Iraqis who come here. The person, Brother Reza John Vidadi, the one who's every night courteously filming us, he's Iranian. But we all come together and we join in. And what unites us is Aba Abdullah. There's no difference between Muslim, non-Muslim here, Christian, Khoja, Arab, Iraqi, Persian. There's absolutely no difference. And I want to say to anyone who criticizes that way, you really have not understood Islam. So when we come here together as a group of people, we come here because we know that what binds us together is Islam. What binds us together is the love for Aba Abdullah alayhi salam. And there's no need for that criticism here. Thank you. That's just the first thing I want to say. Second thing is, after tonight being the last lecture, we have a series of workshops and a Q&A on Friday. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we have workshops, and Friday is going to be a Q&A. And we'll confirm with you about Friday. I'm getting this live feed as we're talking. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we have different workshops. These, mind you, are not Muslim-centric, meaning it doesn't involve hadith or Quran. It might here and there. It's still Islam, because what we're going to be tackling is on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. The titles are about leadership and development, self-development, and also a specific seminar on Wednesday and Thursday about marital relationships and relationships in general and how to keep those alive. Again, this is based off of Dr. John Gottman's book, who's a leading #1 psychologist who's been doing work for the past 100 years about relationships. And he's done a phenomenal study called the Love Lab, which I mentioned. where he brought in couples. He predicted which ones will be divorced, happily married and married, and his predictions were right after 7 years. And he's very accurate, and it's based off of his book called 7 Ways to Keep a Marriage Alive. Beautiful book. So that's going to be Wednesday and Thursday, and on Tuesday is going to be the self-development leadership portion of it. This is extremely phenomenal. We'll be talking about emotional intelligence. We'll be talking about politics and power. We'll be talking about how to actually communicate with individuals. It's very good for those who are involved in business, involved in daily communication with people, as well as those who want to understand others better, because we'll be covering empathy, we'll be covering emotional intelligence, we'll be covering the iceberg model, judgment in society, a lot of these different, humanitarian concepts that we really are in need of, which we don't focus enough as much. The nice thing about workshops is it's not just me sitting here talking to you guys, because that can be quite boring after a while. I even bore myself sometimes, so that's okay. But what it is a very interactive, where we sit in a circle, brothers and sisters. Myself and brother Jasim will be conducting it, because this is part of the leadership development program. It's an offshoot of the leadership development program, profound life-changing program which we both attended, and we just like to share that with the community because I think it helps a lot. So there'll be time for questions. There'll be a lot of activities. Trust me, you will be on your feet a lot of the time. We'll be moving around, getting into groups, doing different sketches and charades and stuff like that in order for us to kind of understand the message, because it's different type of learning. This is just pedagogy, where I talk and you listen, and that's more of an andragogy, where we are both engaged in listening and talking to each other. So inshallah, in the next 4 nights, that's going to be the plan. I highly recommend for everybody to attend, especially those who are in the public sphere, those who are married, looking to get married. It's extremely, extremely helpful. Thank you very much. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.